Thomas, how did you find carnivore?
Well, I found it. I went fully carnivore about 10 months ago. October 1st was actually my 10-month anniversary. So my 1 year anniversary is going to actually be on January 1st. But I actually did go back and forth for many years, going forth like different channels, different watching like you, Carrie Mann, Bella. And in the way beginning, I used to actually watch Dave Mack. You are Dave Mack. I used to watch I used to watch Dr. Barry, thank you, and Bella with my mom, and she died back in 2021. So that's how far back I was actually watching keto or carnivore. So I was slowly like, I don't like to just jump into things. I like to kind of study it and learn. But I was always behind the scenes. I never watched it really from my phone. Just watched it from my television. I have like one of those Roku devices that I can just watch things from the TV. And I just basically, my mom, I think my mom had a crush on Dr. Barry because like she was really sick. She had metastatic breast cancer and it metastasized into her bones. Like it always does like a different area. And for her, it went into the bones and eventually it actually deteriorated the skull. So, I wanted her to be on keto and everything like that, but she was on for a short while and actually was helping her out. But unfortunately, she wasn't thinking about it helping her cancer. She was more thinking about it helping her lose weight. Just like most people, they get they get into this groove basically of that I'm doing it to lose weight. And then when they don't lose weight, that's why a lot of people I think leave carnivore. I think that's one of the main reasons why if anybody is going to leave carnivore, that's why they do it. But if they were recognizing the healing, I think that would have been a big difference. So she had a crush on every time he would speak, every time she'd even hear his voice, she would just get up, sit up, and she'd want to watch. And then we also watched Bella because back then Bella used to play the piano. So her piano playing actually relaxed her. You know, I think she would have liked people like you. I mean, we probably watched you a little bit at that time, but I'm not sure if you even were around at that time. To be honest with you, Dave.
Yeah, I didn't start till late 22.
Oh, okay, so I'm sure she would have watched you. you know, but and I'm sure she would have loved Carrie too. But and Kilts, but and definitely she would have loved Old Guy Carnivore. She definitely would have related to him. So I think she would have become carnivore, but that we're not talking about her. We're talking about me, obviously. So I was like on and off, on and off. I went through. I had diabetes. Actually, technically, I still have diabetes. I've brought my sugars right now. I brought my A1C when I first met you was 8.9. Now my last I call them baselines. Every time I get like my A1C tested, I'm like, this is my baseline for right now. So whether it goes up or down, I don't know. But right now, this is how I know it. And right now it's at 6.2. So I'm no longer type 2 diabetic technically, even though to me, diabetes is diabetes. There's no one, two, it's like we're all, and, um, I basically got that tested. So that's lower, um, which is really great because the diabetes really did affect me. It caused a lot of problems, and being in this community with everybody, I kind of was able to reflect a little bit too, and I did a lot of reflection since I last saw you. Um, One of the things that I figured out was what probably like I had a really bad infection. Other than what was caused by diabetes, I had neuropathy that caused me to actually, I had about 20, I'd say about, I'm not even sure how much, but enough. Like anything more than one is too much, if you want to ask me. And I had like part of my heel bone removed on my one foot. And then on my left foot. And then I had all five of my toes, which I think it's called a transmyrtal or transport. I forget, trans something. And I had my big toe taken off first, and then and then like 6 months later, I had the other four toes removed. And it was. I'm not gonna lie, it was a bad diet. That we all had suffered. Most of us have suffered through. Because we were. There's so much misinformation. And I think misinterpretation. I think was a lot. It was a big, huge problem as well. Like when we were told to moderate our carbs, I think people still thought, okay, well, it's okay to have cake, just moderate it.
Well,
It's okay.
that's the impression you get from the ADA, right?
Right. Exactly. And I think that was the impression of a lot of medical people, a lot of these nurses and nutritionists. I think that's how they interpreted it. Like it's like when I went to the hospital and I was in rehabs, and believe me, I was in the hospital a lot for those 2 or 3 years, and rehabs and all that stuff. They would be like, well, you need to have carbs for your diabetes. You just have to moderate it. But then they would also admit the carbs were bad. So which is it? Is it that I need the carbs or the carbs are bad? And obviously it's a catch-22. Like it's sort of like a vicious circle, at least on our part. You know, um, if you eat the carbs, you need the insulin. In order to need the insulin, you need to eat the carbs. And it's never dawned on anybody that, wait, if I got rid of the carbs, then eventually I'd get rid of the insulin, and I can get rid of both problems.
And the trouble is, everyone is in a state of like constantly different messages being put in that you never really know what the right thing to do is. So you kind of just following the advice of the doctor or the nurse who's in front of you at the time, right?
Yeah, yeah, and let's face facts. They're pretty much misinformed too. They're only going by what they learned. I don't think most doctors. I mean, there are some that are kind of idiotic and they're out there. But I think for the most part, I think most doctors are just trying to do good, and they're just going by the information they're given. And that's why I kind of value Dr. Barry, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker, because I know Dr. Barry definitely was making these mistakes. He was doing the same thing all these other doctors were doing, but the only difference with him, with the other one, these carnivore doctors, and all these other doctors, is his eyes got open. And he realized, you know, oh my God, we've been making this mistake, and I got to do something about it. And
Yeah.
um,
I have a lot of respect for these doctors,
yeah,
like Dr. Berry, Dr. Chafee, and Dr. Kiltz, so forth, because they've literally and figuratively gone against the grain. So that like they have all their peers look at them and would probably talk about them like they're crazy, and
right,
so they're not only fighting back against information they've been told and working out what the correct thing to do is, they're also fighting back against the whole establishment that's designed to keep them in line.
yeah. I mean, look at. I think it was both Dr. Baker and Dr. Chafee had to bring in a lawyer because they were going through some legal issues about being legitimately a doctor and all that stuff. And that's where Chris Brownland comes in. And it's crazy. It really is. But so to go back, one of the things I think was caught. One of the things in retrospect, because I think that we sort of wondered, you know, when I talked to you, I think we sort of wondered how this one thing happened with my back, and I'll tell it, I basically had I couldn't move. I was pretty much paralyzed for like almost 4 months. Couldn't move out. Like when I mean paralyzed, I mean I couldn't even sit in a chair, and I was literally laying down. It's the only way that I was in the least pain. Okay, and I was still in pain. I was still crying every night, every day. Had to be pulled up in the bed in order to eat, and even then, I could hardly eat. Like I pretty much fasted for like 9 days in the first realm. Um, So what I think, the thing that really bothered me with that was really the treatment that I had, at the hospital. Um, when I first how it happened is I was pretty much used I was my foot was just, my toes were just removed and they were starting to heal, but I was in a wheelchair. I had to be non foot weight bearing, so I was in a wheelchair, not using anything. And I thought it was because there was something wrong with the mattress at the bed, and I also thought there was something wrong with the wheelchair. So I thought maybe that's why I'm having a bad back. So when I went home, I was home for like 2 or 3 days, and the pain was starting to increase. So I had an appointment with my podiatrist, and like a thing called wound care. And basically, what wound care is just at the hospital, but it's not really in. And I was there to get my bandage changed. So I told them about the pain, and they said, "Well, maybe you should get that looked at." You know. So I'm like, "Well, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd have to make an appointment or anything like." And they go, "Just go to the ER. They'll do it. Like they'll do it for you. Little do they know." So I went to the ER. So I had my wheelchair at that time, and they were gracious enough to get me a ride home in my wheelchair. So I was able to get that. And but the thing is, it was really weird on how they did it. They gave me an IV of Tylenol, and they said, "Okay, just we'll wait like a half an hour to an hour, and then we'll see how it works." So it was about a half an hour later, and I went to the nurse, and I said, like, how fast should this be working? And she goes, "Well, you should be feeling fun. You should be feeling good by now." So I said, "Well, I'm not. I mean, I was a little better in one section of my back, like in the hip area, but I wasn't better, you know." And I said, "No, I'm still in pretty bad pain here." And she goes, exact word, she goes, "Well, we can't do anything today. You're going to have to come back because we already filled out your discharge papers." Like, not to be mean, but they're discharge papers. Like rip them up and go from there. Like just now let's look at why I'm having such pain. But I didn't say anything. I was just like, you know what, I'm in too much pain to argue. So I'm like, obviously I'm not going to get anywhere with these people. At least that's how I felt at that time. So I go home, and about 2 days later the pain is getting a little worse. Now I could hardly sit, I can hardly move. And I say hardly because I could do a little bit. And I just, so I went there and I thought, you know what? I haven't gone to the bathroom in like 5 days. So maybe it's a constipation thing. I didn't think it was that, but I like let's throw everything and see, like throw all the darts out and see which dart sticks. And they they basically, she looked at me, and for some reason she had to look at my foot because my foot was still bandaged. And I don't know why they had to look at my foot. I wasn't there because my foot was hurting me. I was there because I had pain in my back. Two different things. And so she unwrapped me. And when I went there the second time, I didn't have a wheelchair because the ambulance couldn't bring the wheelchair, so I had to go in on a stretcher. So I actually did find a wheelchair, again broken. God forbid a hospital actually has one that works. And and I found it, and I got myself to that wheelchair and everything like that. And I literally, and I'm shortening the story a little bit because um, and they actually never wrapped my foot. I had to rewrap my foot in order to go because I thought I had to use the bathroom. So I'm like, okay, so I find the wheelchair, and I didn't have to go to the bathroom, but obviously something was going on in my brain that made me think I did. Now, she only looked at me to unwrap the foot. They never looked at me in any other way. Okay. She gave me a script for a laxative, of course, and I was there for about 16 hours. Okay, total. Then the security guard goes over to me while I'm in the wheelchair because I was in so much pain. But once I got into the wheelchair, even though I was in pain, I wasn't going to try to get out because I was in too much pain to even move. So he wheels me out outside and says, "Okay, you can go home now." Basically, what was happening was they actually were housing for overnight. They were housing homeless people, and he connected me because the doctor told him, yeah, him too, to taking all the homeless people out before the morning started because it was around 4 in the morning. So they had to get rid of all the people that were sleeping sleeping overnight, and which is nice. They were taking care of the homeless, but I wasn't homeless. I actually have a home. I actually had, I was paying with my insurance and everything like that. And so I got kicked out, and my brain, I mean, obviously when something like that, experience like that happens, you're like, I'm not coming, I'm not going to go here. Now, most of my doctors are from that hospital, so I sort of have to relate to that hospital no matter what because they're connected to the hospital. And especially my podiatrist. And so if I ever have to go to the hospital and stay at the hospital, that's where he's going to be. So on the 19th of September, which is like, it was like two days after the second incident. And right before that, right after I had the second incident, I complained. I called up the administration and complained about my experiences and all that because, I mean, how else are they going to know that what the doctors do and what the staff does, and how you were treated? So, so I go there on the third. I end up having to go there on the third day. By this time, I had to use the stretcher. I couldn't even fathom using a wheelchair. Okay, my pain was just so bad. I was getting worse and worse and worse, and I was like pretty much at the ultimate by this time. You know. So, and I even tried doing a fasting, and that's kind of where the thing spiraled. I did a 4-day fast, but then everything, started happening. So I go there, and I guess they got word that I complained because this time, thank God, they actually did an MRI. They did a CAT scan. They did, and with the MRI, they found out that I had an MRSA infection right inside my lower spine. And it was actually deteriorating my spine at that time. And that's why I was going through all that. And if they checked that, like if they had checked it the first day, like I asked them to, I probably would have been okay because they could have given me the IV right away. They gave me the IV, and obviously I'm good now. But you know, but it could have been done a lot sooner. I might not have had to endure that.
Wow. And sorry, this was September of 24.
This was September of, yeah. No, actually, it might have been a whole year might have gone by from that. So I think it was more September of 23,
Right.
to be honest with you. Um, because fortunately, September of 25, I was here with you, and not you, not literally here, but I mean, with the community. And September 24, I was at the hospital, but I was at the hospital doing my last time being in rehab. So yeah, so I believe it was September 23. I don't know about you, but I'm very bad with timelines. It's time flies by. It's like, wait, you're 15, really? Like type thing.
Yeah. So, um, in the time since then, you decided I'm gonna do carnivore. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna go seriously into carnivore, and
Yeah.
your A1Cs come down from 8.9 to 6.2. Um, how are you feeling now? And
I still have my moments. I mean, because I'm still in a healing process. I think carnivore. What I think people get confused by is carnivore is not a quick fix. You damage your body for so many years, many people decades, and they expect that everything's going to be solved in a snap of the finger, and it's not. But the improvements I have are still pretty remarkable to me. I mean, there are some things I have to be told that this is better. Like you just, you could look at yourself and not really see. too many changes. It's just I think the nature of the beast. But I mean, look, I mean, I got my A1C down. Okay, I take like less than half of the insulin that I used to take. I mean, I used to take 14 units of short acting. I used to take 40 units of long acting. I now, I don't really take insulin unless it's over 100 and 150. Like if it's over 150, then I'll take my insulin. If it's less than that, I let it see if it goes down. Now it's starting to go down by itself. So I really just take insulin like maybe at the most twice a day, like early in the morning, and then I just took some insulin now because it went, but I only took 5 units, and already since I've talked to you, it's going up a little bit, but it's going back down too. It's like kind of like an elevator. But I've gotten off all my, I'm no longer on my blood pressure medication. When I last saw you, I was taking a medication because I had, one of the things I had for many, many times, and it's kind of why I did this one other thing. And I'll get into that. I actually had very bad gastroparesis. And in the medication they prescribed was omeprazole. Well, omeprazole is only supposed to be taken for like the first 6 weeks, and then you're supposed to be taken off it. Well, they kept me on it for 6 years. So that was a hard medication to, like I couldn't trust the doctors to take me off it because every time I'd ask them to take me off it or wean me off it, they'd be like, "Oh, it's okay, you could have it." Like I'm not asking permission to have it. I'm asking permission to not have it. But so I finally gave up on. No offense to the doctors, but I finally gave up on asking them permission. Like you're obviously not going to give it to me, so I'm going to just wean myself off it, and I did. And I eventually went to apple cider vinegar. And when I have issues now, I still, like here, I still have my apple cider vinegar. I have it right next to me if I have some indigestion issues, because I know it's part of the problem is they get rid of all the acid in your stomach, and you need the acid in order to break down the food and everything. So it's like thinking it's a little opposite if you think about it. So I did that, and one of the issues I still have is I guess you could say I still get brain fog, but I think the thing is I think I had such bad brain fog before. Like, believe it or not, I think my brain fog's improved. Yeah, no. So I mean, I still have some brain fog. Like I said about the timelines and stuff like that. Like I have to think in my head, like, okay, when did this happen? What, But one of the brain fog's problem I had is I used to do tuxedos for a living. I used to be the guy that would actually fit you with your tuxedo for a wedding and for the prom, for the ball, whatever you want to call it. And I did that for 25 years. So I was really good at it. And in the last year of me working for my boss, I kept on, like, I closed the store, and he actually had tailoring that he had tailor and everything. And he had what was called the pressing table. And he actually had the pressing table, and it would have a heat, like a vacuum, and it would have a heat to it. So you had to turn it off um, every night. Well, I thought I was turning it off. I would even like do a checklist to make sure I'm turning it off. Next day, you left it on overnight. Which he was afraid was going to cause a fire. It probably wouldn't have. And I even made the suggestion, like, well, maybe what we could do is like hook up to a timer, so then that way by a certain time it turns off by itself. But and another guy said, yeah, that's a great idea, but he didn't really want to do that. You know, but the thing is, every night I like maybe out of the 7 days of the week, maybe five, I would actually forget to turn it off. So it's getting like really problematic, and I was getting worried. So I told him, I said, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's wrong with me. And my blood sugar was probably pretty high at that time. It's probably because about a year after that, I found that my blood sugar, my A1C was 13.5 at that time, and that's like the real beginning of my foot issues and stuff. So I think that was part of the problem was, I just had really high blood sugars, and it was causing the brain fog, or, the miss. the miscomprehension, I guess you could call it, So, so I said to him, I said, like, thank you for having me work with you for such a long time. For him, I worked like 10 years. Thank you for having me work with you for such a long time. That I think in order to, I think for both of our sakes, I think it's best that I actually just move on to a different job. And he's like, yeah, with a heavy heart, he's like, yeah, I agree. So I had to leave the job and everything like that. But that's when my brain fog was really, really bad. And I don't think I'm that bad anymore. I think I can think.
Right. So just if you compare, say, how you were in October of 24, like what kind of a normal day for you in October of 24 versus October 25, what's changed? Is there less pain or
Oh God, yeah. I'm sorry. You just excited me on that one. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I still have pain. Okay, I don't deny that. I don't ignore that. And I think the pain I have is so centralized to the leg. I think one of the things, and this is just my theory. Okay, you know part of my n equals one experiment. I think the reason why I have pain is always on the leg where I had the toes taken off. Okay, every once in a while it's on the other leg, but 90% of the time it's on that leg. And it's whenever I walk, when I step on that foot, I get a surge of pain. So one of the things I have to do is when I'm walking, I have to stop, hold on to a tree. It could be anything I can hold on to. If I had a cane, I'd use the cane, but obviously I don't want to use a cane, because would you want to use a cane when you could get off the cane? So, so I just lift the foot for like about maybe 5 seconds, and I put it back down, and I can go right back to walking again. But the pain is still there. However, all right, I am. I don't need the pain pills anymore. Since like I think if I'm going to say if I did ever need them, I think I had some Advil twice in the 10 months that I've been carnivore. That's it. Okay, and it was just like one pill, just enough to kind of like just it wasn't even like taking like a double dose or anything like that. I was just taking one pill and that was it. And but for the most part, I just go through the pain. You know, I'm able to endure a lot more. I can now and so, every once in a while you get like this like burst of energy or this this able to push yourself. And I went from not being able to walk at all, you know, which I was in the wheelchair for, the whole thing took a while. I mean, the 4 months of being pretty much paralyzed in the bed was like 4 months, but I did other things too that were putting me in a wheelchair, putting me in a walker, having me do a knee scooter. It takes a while. And I think the reason why I had the infection in retrospect is my doctor, when he did the four toes, he never closed the wound. For almost a year and a half, I had an open wound. So even though I was bandaged and they were trying to keep it up, you can't fully control that. So I think the infection got in through the wound. That's my theory. I also think that, you cut the nerve, right, of the foot. Well, it's going to affect, I think, the nerve from having the toes removed. And every time I step down, I think it reacts to the nerve and then surges the pain right up my leg. And I think that that's, because even though originally I wasn't feeling pain at all, I mean, I stepped on a thumbtack, like a nail, and I wouldn't feel it. But I think it was still affecting the nerves in my leg, and it was going up my leg. And that's why I was feeling, yeah, that's the pain I actually feel. It's the, um, trying to think of the word, you know, I guess the benefit of having your toes chopped off, it's, you know, reco- yeah, I'm sorry, my brain again. I just have bad things with
no,
words.
no worries. So at this stage, you feel like carnivore is the way you're going to keep going, and you feel like things are just gradually getting better day by day.
Yeah, I mean, some things are going pretty quickly. I even though according to the scale I've only lost maybe 12 pounds, you know, I know that I've lost more than that. I've gone from a size when I first saw you, I was about size 40 44 waist. Now I'm a size 40, and they're starting to get a little loose on me. I went from a 2X shirt to an XL shirt. This one's a little bit on the snug side, but it still fits pretty well. And and everything, and like I think my face is thinner. I mean, I know I said to you that I was going to shave only until I got to 5.4 A1C, but I did shave like 2 or 3 times since then. So I mean, obviously I couldn't keep the beard for too long, but I grew it back again just for you. And and then you just it's not even just healing. It's also like being with the community. But to kind of like go back a little bit. So when I had the gastroparesis, I saw this video by Sarah Hallberg. I saw two different videos. I saw a video by Sarah Hallberg, and she's the one who kind of like got me. She's the one who planted the seed for me to consider carnivore. Okay, because she had said in the video that she was in, it was a TED talk, and she had pretty much said the simple. To me, I'm very logical. When something is simple and makes sense, I can be very, very, like it just resonates with me. When the more simple the answer, because you think about it, carnivore is a pretty simplistic concept. Eat the meat to heal. That's like you get any more simpler than that. But when she said that fats lower the blood sugar and carbs raise it, well, once I heard that, and proteins are sort of like middle of the road, once I heard that, I thought to myself, well, carnivores like practically zero carbs. So wouldn't that be the best diet for me to get rid of to lower my blood sugar? And if my blood sugar is the high blood sugar is sort of the cause of why I lost my toes, sort of the cause of all this stuff that was going on with me, then why would I not do that? Now I still waited, I still did, but I was like kind of like keto. Tell you the truth, for a couple of years I was carnivore, but I was on and off carnivore for two reasons. One, I still had stuff when I was depressed, and I didn't have the community to keep me from controlling myself with depression. So if I got really depressed, I had the toxic roommate. My roommate, she was a really bad alcoholic, and she used to drink like 30 cans of beer a day, and and she just and after a while she actually stopped even paying me rent. So not only did I have the stress of her living, and she was hardly very helpful. She didn't do anything. So and I was living. That's like in a way I was better off being in rehab. And at least I was safer to be in the rehab. But until the last time I was in rehab in the hospital, because I actually was a little bit more stringent, basically, you know, I had to eat whatever they gave. I pretty much had to eat whatever they gave me. They put me on a diabetic diet. And what is a diabetic diet in the hospital? It's no, no, you can't have eggs. No, you can't have bacon. No, you can't have, like here's oatmeal for you. The best thing for you is oatmeal, or pancakes. Like, how is that the best thing for a diabetic? Like, again, backwards thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got to keep your fiber up. So, on that, like, what is your eating like now?
Right before I came on with you, I just finished a steak with some blue cheese, and I had a half a stick of butter, and I'm still nursing some coffee. It's in a big mug, but the reason why it's in a big mug, it's not actually that much in there. The reason why it's in a big mug is because I use a hand blender to blend it from the cup, so I just had the bigger cup for that reason. But it's a half a stick of butter with my coffee. So I do a lot of fat. Sometimes I will put egg yolk in it, and I have been known to put bacon grease in it as well. So, but 90% of the time, it definitely is always. One time I actually didn't have butter, bacon, or eggs, so I put a scoop of lard in it. That was that. I'll be honest with you. that was kind of a weird taste. It was good, but it was very, very bland. It wasn't really, it didn't really enhance the flavor of the coffee whatsoever.
Mm.
So, but like I'll do stuff like that. I still go when I go shopping. I use a I'm sure you have. I don't know if you have one where you're at, but I'm sure you've heard of it. Walmart. I get delivered food delivered from Walmart. But the problem with Walmart, and I'm sorry if I'm putting this out there, the problem with Walmart is they're weighted items. Okay, what they do is, and I know the money will come back to me, but I'm the type that if it gets spent right then, I might need it next day. I can't wait like 3 or 4 days for it to come back to me. And whenever you get a weighted item delivered, like say, I'll give you an example. Say you buy steaks and they're each $10, and you buy 10 steaks, $100, right? Well, I can see it being a little bit more, but I'll literally be paying about 225, $250 for that same steaks because they charge weight charges and stuff.
Right. So
So
like that's because of like delivery
Well,
costs or
I guess.
something.
Well, I think what they're doing is because they're doing by weight. So if it's like so much, in case one of them isn't actually $10, one of them is $12, it's still compensated for that, and then they'll just reimburse me whatever difference was. So if it's still stuck to $100, then they'll just send me back to $150. But I can't wait 3 or 4 days. So what I do is I only buy stuff that's not weight, stuff that's prepackaged. Like I'll buy a box of burgers that go by the quantity of the burgers and not the weight of them. Like it just says 32 burgers. So I do the prepackaged, and the burgers I buy are just pretty much beef. That's it, and it's 73. It's 73.27. So I buy about 4 or 5 boxes of them. I shop every month because I have, I still have an EBT card. I'm collecting disability, but I am slowly getting out of that, very, very slowly, but I still need it for right now. Because, I mean, my progress is when I first started, I couldn't work. If I stood up for like 2 hours, that would have been way too much for me by that time. Now, without breaking, I could actually stay. I can actually work for like I can technically I can work up to 6 hours now without having to take a break. So I can't do that every day, but I also have to accommodate of the allowance that I have. So it's not just my body; it's also about the allowance. So I usually work 4 hours a day, and I can work 16 hours a week. So I work at least four. I work about 4 days a week. So I'm doing that now, which is a miracle to me. Okay. YouTube alone is pretty much, I mean, not really YouTube, it's more like the community is a miracle to me. I went to the Boston meetup and met Carrie Mann and Dr. Kiltz, and I've never been welcomed so much by by people. And Louis Tito, he's in the membership, and he actually welcomed me to his home, and him and his wife drove me. Well, Jay drove too, but they drove me to Boston from New York. So I mean, how much kindness do you get? Except for it's like it's just a community that we're so supportive of each other. You get a few people out there that are like kind of like but for the most part we're pretty we support each other pretty well. um I mean, look at my channel. I had so many big names on my channel, including you, that you could have thought to yourself like, no, he's just a small potato, why would I go on his channel? But you guys didn't. You guys gave me the support, and I'm so appreciative of that. And you know if I was a crying man, I probably would have a tear in my eye. But I never was a crying man, so you would not know that for me. But I hardly ever cry. So
Yeah. So if you were talking to someone that had they were going through their own journey with type 2 diabetes, and they said, look, I want to I need to fix this, and nothing's working as far as the drugs the doctors are prescribing me. So what can I do with carnivore? What advice would you give them?
Okay, so that's an interesting question because everybody has a different take on how they receive the information. But I probably would start off with telling them a little bit about my experiences, telling them on how, but also letting them know too, because I think part of the problem, at least with me, is you get so many people that like I had one guy I was reading the chats one time, and I had one guy go to me, well, not go to me, but go in the chats. Obviously, I was reading the chat, and he said that he had an A1C of 20.6, and which first off, I don't see it that even being possible because you'd have to have a blood sugar of like 700, like practically like your average would have to be 700. So obviously you'd have to have some blood sugars of 800 and some of, and and then he went down to like 4.1 within like 3 weeks. That's not possible, like not to be mean, but I kind of doubt that that was true. But even if it was, that's people listen to that, and then when they don't actually go lower, they think the diet failed. So I make sure to tell them that it's not a quick fix. You're working hard to reverse all this stuff. So if you want to see some progress, okay, it is suggested to at least do it for 30 days. My suggestion, 90 days. That's when you're going to really see. That's when you're going to really see the results. You know, and so I'll put that in their head first. Like, do it for 90 days. You can do this. You don't need the sugar. I mean, and one of the things I tell them too is you got to get out of your head that you need the sugar, that you need the stuff, and I'll iterate. Like, I've been doing this for 10 months, and I haven't had a single vegetable in the 10 months. Oh, that's a lie. I did have some pickles, but that's it. And I did have an Oreo cookie a couple times because my blood sugar actually went really really low really really quick. So I needed something to bring the blood sugar up, and I was right next to the candy store, so I just went in, got an Oreo, and brought it right back up again. Everybody knows the story. It's not a secret. And I mean, you do whatever you have to do. But I'm at a stage now. It's another thing that's happened. Like before, if I had a package of Oreos and I brought it home and everything like that, that whole package would be gone within an hour. Like all 20, however is in a pack, like 20, 24, that all 24 of those Oreos would be gone within an hour. Like I could not just eat, like people say moderate. What is moderate? It's kind of, I know it's not, but it's kind of like a four-letter word. It doesn't make any sense. And but now I can actually go into the candy store, see all these cakes and candies, and just ask for a cup of coffee. And then when I did need the Oreo, I just asked for one Oreo, and I didn't want any more. I just got enough to get my sugar up. So I'm a lot more in control now than I used to be. Um, but I basically, yeah, I basically would just tell them that, just you have, and another thing I would suggest too is join a community. I'm part of three communities. Um, I mean, when I saw you, I think I was only part of Carrie. I'm not sure, but now I'm also part of SPG, with Bella, and she was very gracious to me. She actually, Carrie, Bella, all of them have been so gracious. And then eventually, and I'm surprised I didn't actually do Kilts first because Kilts has a free membership for his tribe. So you would think I would join the free one before I did the other two. But I'm also part of Kilts, and then I'm also a member with Mitch. I'm part of his tribe, and I just became a member because it was only like $1.99 with Aaron Booby Goats. So we all support each other. I watch different lives all the time. I was just on an interview with Amy Davis, rocking coach Amy, and it's just like you need the community. I don't I you could argue that I've been carnivore for a lot longer than 10 months, right? But just because I was on and off doesn't mean I wasn't carnivore. But the thing is, it wasn't until the community that helped me do for 10 months. If I didn't have the community, then I probably would have been stopping. So you need to join a community if you really want to succeed. It's
That,
going to help.
yeah, that's really important. Um, so Thomas, if people want to find you on YouTube, how can they find your channel?
Oh, it's very good. Actually, my channel is Target Prime Rib, just like the hat. Okay. And you could also see me every once in a while. I put some things out on Instagram, on Facebook, and I put some things out on TikTok. So I have, and then I do twice a week. I do lives of my own every Tuesday, usually every Tuesday and Saturday. If there is a change, it's because the guest, we had to kind of like change times. Usually at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Um, but that's the best way to find me.
You
You
know,
also see me too if you go to other people's channels like Mitch and stuff like that. You will see me in the chats every once in a while. So if you see Target Prime Rib in the chats, you know exactly who I am. You know exactly who to look for. Um, but that's the best way to find me.
no worries. I'll link to those in the show
Of course.
notes. Thomas, thank you so much for coming on and letting us know how things are going. I really appreciate your time.
Of, of, I so appreciate this. It was so much fun.